I'm Dale Matthews, and Mike Jones is here, and this is a continuation of our Wednesday show. Hello, Mike.
Yes, good evening, Dale. As I was saying...
Yes, as we were both trying to say, there were the vagaries of the internet got involved again. It's all these vagaries that are moving into town. Yes, right. So, so we're going to continue pretty much where we left off on Wednesday. And if you want to register how you feel about this, you can always go to Wednesday after the show. Thank you. And then you could click on the various flames there, etc. if you wish to vote. You don't have to vote if you don't want to, but you'll be in lots of trouble. So, okay, let's start right in with where we are. We're going to roll back just a little bit, and we're going to let you know about what's happening with this whole thing about testing water. Go ahead, Mike.
Kind of talked about procedurally and he's pulling together a proposal, is to establish a baseline at the dam site removal, a baseline here, so we can monitor what's happening with that sediment as it comes down the Rogue River. And so his proposal will be ready.
We'll have it together September 8th, and then I can come and present that to you guys.
Oh, great.
At that time.
Good. I'd like to see that.
All right, so that was the first test, was in the water, 75 feet below the dam. The second test is taking sample number, the sample ID number is the top left corner of the page. Is for 215-03195. That was a sediment scraping that I took a quarter-mile upstream from the dam. Again, this is on the surface of the reservoir bottom. So it is a sediment sample. But at the top, there's elevated levels of the aluminum. Arsenic is over the EPA limit. There's a number of other potential contaminants there.
Okay, arsenic is over the EPA limit. Arsenic is over the EPA limit. Important point.
Yes, but this is in the water right after they popped the dam out of there, and all kinds of hell broke loose in that reservoir bottom area. And then I believe later in here, I'm not sure if it's in here, I hope it is, where he talks about, testing the water in that area. I think it was the day after the dam was taken out, and has arsenic levels that are below danger levels. Yes, that is among these clips. The important thing to note here to me is, you may remember that movie Jaws, everybody. And the mayor is trying to talk to Chief Brody. And he's saying, you say barracuda, and everyone goes, huh? What? You say shark. And you've got a panic on the 4th of July. Mm-hmm. Well, the same thing goes with the word arsenic. You say there's aluminum in the water. Okay. But you say there's arsenic in the water, and everybody pays attention. So looking at it from a jaded viewpoint, you're going to lead with the word arsenic if you're trying to start a project that might get you reelected, if you're trying to be an important health director, if you're trying to sell a contract, you're going to start with the word arsenic. I mention this word because later, when you see the subsequent meetings they have, suddenly the word arsenic is no longer in the dialogue. Hey, what happened to that very important word? If you don't mind me asking, what words were they using afterwards?
They said aluminum. They said they did not say chromium 6. They said aluminum, and they also said trace elements of uranium, but they stopped talking about, I'm listening and I'm going, wait a minute, what happened to that word?
Yeah, but less than a billion, less than 1 part per billion of arsenic is also what might be referred to as a trace element.
That's right. That's right. And the important thing for you to remember, whenever you watch this, we mentioned this on Wednesday, important thing is whenever you're with us here and you're participating in this investigative journalism, whenever you run across something where you go, well, that's really unusual, pay attention to that.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting. They say trace uranium, but they don't specify. They're not talking parts per billion anymore.
No.
Because you don't have to. We can just say trace element. Whoa, it's got trace uranium in there? That's not good. I could be glowing in the dark, for crying out loud.
It depends on why you're doing this, because it's not just science, it's also politics. Yes. Okay, next clip, please.
I was able to get 2 samples on that day. This is the second day. One was of the water flowing on top of the bedrock coming out from the sediment. And those numbers, I mean, the sample on that day looked really clean. And the numbers were okay. Probably arsenic was around the same.
The same?
The same as what?
Now, that's a very, we're taking this apart. This is the analysis of a sales project, just like we did with Mark Von Holly and the commissioners, okay? Because of the things he said, it went by so quickly, Keith's not hearing him, and Cheryl's already heard all of this. This is her project. And so, wait a minute, he just said it was above the EPA limit. Then he just now said was clean, arsenic was the same.
Right. And so that doesn't really make any sense. So he's saying that, and when he says above EPA limits, he doesn't specify what that is either.
No.
You know, I mean, there's a lot of missing stuff here. But also, if we continue with this, I believe he's talking about this right after.
One other thing, just so that you know. Oh, you guys are being so picky. Why you're picking apart every word he's saying. He's doing a sales job. Well, it is what we do, right? But he's doing a sales job on them. And look what the result was. It was going to be a $600,000 contract over 5 years. Okay, so. There was a reason that this happened. One is that our county is an easy mark. We have no money, but we're willing to spend money, so that doesn't make any sense either. 2, these 2 guys are running for office, and they're going to want something they can point at and go, look at what we're doing for you.
Right,
okay?
right.
Let's go. Next part.
The limits are lower than, I believe, the first day. Yes. It was lower than that which was suspended in the water below the dam after the first day.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because it's running now that the dam is blown out and all the water is gone, and you have running water that's coming down that creek. It's going to be clearer. That's what happens.
He's a water lab guy. Does he know this? Of course he knows this.
Yeah, of course. He collected these samples where he got these crazy things, from the water below the dam right after they blew the thing out.
Yeah.
Yeah. He said the turbidity was high, which basically means the water is muddy. And, and then he goes up there and is testing some water, and we don't have anything definitive yet on that, because he said, arsenic was the same.
The same. Talk about muddying the waters.
The same as what?
The same as above the EPA limit. He just said it was the same.
Yes, right. Yes, of course.
Above the EPA limit, but it was clean.
That's so clear. That's so clear.
No, there's nothing clear about any of this. Yeah, so many jokes. Make up your own joke. Okay, go ahead.
But that same day, I also took a sediment scraping on the upside of the dam abutment, and
they don't have the results.
No, we do. I do.
No, they don't. They're packaged.
Oh, you don't have it.
Oh, I didn't get it when I came to your office.
Okay, I apologize.
Now, wait a minute. Okay, what is the most important part of the entire sales job? The most important thing is the part for which they don't have the documentation. He just said they don't have it. She had it, but they didn't.
Yeah.
Really? So I paid for a copy, see, because citizens don't get such things, even though they're right there. They have to do research. Remember when I told you about going in and this document was sitting right there? Well, you have to pay a research document. It's right here. It's right in front of me. I'm looking at it. I'm touching it. No, you got to pay a research fee. To research what? It's right here. It's right here. So I paid for this just for you. I'm working my fingers to the bone for you, okay? And I think I got my copy from Cheryl, because she just said they don't have it.
Mm-hmm.
Cheryl did have it.
Okay.
This is a Cheryl Walker project. Do you need to know more? But we'll keep playing tape anyway.
Anyways, so if you look at your reports, do you think the aluminum in the aqueous sample was at 20 parts per million? In the sediment sample, it was 17,065 parts per million. The arsenic, which was at 7 parts per billion, was 21.1 parts per million. So we're talking.
Okay. Hang on just a second here. So the sediment sample had aluminum, which was at what now? 20 parts per million or something like that.
Yeah.
And then, he goes into the sediment and it has a whole lot higher. But then he said the water had arsenic at 7 parts per billion. But he just got done saying here earlier that it was above EPA limits. So I'm a little confused because Lori Johansson came to the weekly business session and she said that danger level starts at 10. Well, maybe the EPA starts their danger level lower than that.
Well, we think she was talking about the EPA limit, but we don't know.
Yeah, one would think so. We'll get clarification on that, I guess, later. Anyway, here we go.
Talking about 3 magnitudes higher in the sediment sample.
Okay, so if you go to the next little illustration I've given you, just for those who want to see it in front of them with numbers, we'll explain a little bit more of that because not everybody's real good with numbers. Okay, numbers. Yeah, it's coming up. It's the next little thing.
It's the next. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I thought you were referring to something I didn't have.
And then pause this, if you will. Okay.
There we go.
Now, here's what the guy's saying. It's 7 parts per billion. And then when he does his special test
of the sediment,
it's 21 parts per million. Okay, right. That B and M are pretty important. Right. Billion is 7 times 3. It's 3 times higher, he said. Well, but in order to get to million, it would have to be 7, the 7 parts per billion times 3,000, because it's not per billion, which is a lot bigger. It's per million, which is a lot smaller. So right. It's 3,000 times 7 equals right. 21 parts per million. But the other important thing, as Mike just pointed out, the other important thing is if it's true that 7 parts per billion, sorry about the math, if that's true that that's below the EPA limit or below the safe limit for humans, which is maybe a better way to put it,
right?
Then 21 parts per million is 2,000 times 10, right? Right? Of course that's right. So it's 2,000 times above the human limit. It's too much helicopter noise for humans. Yeah. It's yes. Too much lying for citizens. It's right. Too much arsenic to drink.
Right. However, there is an element here that was in play during the speeches that were given in the Ann Basker here just on Tuesday that are relevant here, and that is that this 21 parts per million is in the sediment. Okay, so they had to release, either they pulverized this stuff somehow, put it in a blender, or they used acid or some other chemical to release whatever was in the sediment. Now maybe if you put a tablespoon of this sediment in a Coke bottle and shook it around and then strained out the water and threw the sediment out, and then you got 21 parts per million, then okay, now maybe you're speaking to me a little bit more than you are if you said, well, I had to treat that with acid and break it down so everything would be in solution. I'm sure there's a lot of stuff in the dirt outside of my house that I wouldn't want to be drinking in water if we somehow made it part of the solution.
Because of the acid. That's right. Exactly right. So what we need to worry about is this sediment's working its way toward Grants Pass and Josephine County. Okay. And the only reason we need to worry from what I can see is if somebody is following along with a little eyedropper of acid, dropping it in there. Okay, am I exaggerating? I mean,
they would first have to get it off the bottom, because you would have to treat it with acid that was high enough concentrated to break this stuff down and release the arsenic. into the water. And then, so the bottom line is I need to be convinced that there's some sort of danger of this sediment creeping along the bottom of the Rogue River over the next 20 years. And the trace elements that it's going to release, just because it's rolling along the bottom and perhaps being crushed into finer and finer particles. I don't know that that's going to happen at all.
Well, neither one of us is anti-scientific. Let's be realistic, okay? But what we're talking about here, and I'm not saying that let's gamble the lives of everybody just on a few dollars out of our pockets. This is more than a few dollars. This is like a deputy on the road, okay, with an automobile, with a patrol vehicle. Okay, but if it's true that sediment is working its way toward Grants Pass and eventually out to the ocean, okay, what realistically happens with that? I don't cherish the idea of water flowing over sediment that has arsenic or other bad things in it, and then I get a chance to drink it. But as we're testing it and testing it and testing it, if it turns out where for some reason it's not doing that, it's not ending up being poisonous because of the amount of water or because of the vagaries of the internet or for some other thing.
Well, listen, hang on a second here. This really, we got one of the first heavy rains that we've had since this dam was taken out here the other day. They tested the water just down below the dam. Don't you think that you would get, some crazy high levels of arsenic or some of these other chemicals, maybe some of these other chemicals? But arsenic was cited early on here as one of the chemicals that's the danger thing. Look, it's 21 parts per million or something like that. Oh my God.
Now, the important thing also to remember here is this is Diane Hoover sitting next to him. That's not just nobody, okay?
Right.
She's the health director, and she reports directly and only to Cheryl Walker most of the time, and then other times to the board. Cheryl already knows what Diane's going to say. This was already vetted through Cheryl. This is a Cheryl project. And so right now, this health director is saying, oh, the guy is telling us about arsenic. But later, just a few days later, she doesn't mention arsenic anymore. Why?
Right. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe she's advised by Eric Shaftsman not to mention arsenic anymore. But that's pure speculation. One thing that I think is notable in all of this is that there are a number of people who could benefit from the story that could be related about this sediment and the poison and the et cetera, and the testing and we saved you from all of that. There's a number of people who could benefit from that little narrative there.
Well, and we also already know what the answer is. We already told you that and the Daily Courier finally came out with this story today.
Oh, okay.
Finally today. Okay. It's several days after us, but okay, whatever. Now we know. Okay.
Dale's not at all competitive.
I am. We try to deliver you the news. Not only do we do that, we do it days before anybody else. You're watching the right channel. Okay. So, now, since we know the end here, we know that the commissioners dropped this like a hot potato. Well, now wait a minute. What about the children? What about protecting the community? What about the arsenic? What about everything? What about Diane Hoover? Why are we so happy to drop this?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you why. This is okay. Again, this is my opinion as to why this happened. The political advantage left town on a bus, and it was they tested the water below the dam. Comes up essentially zero on arsenic. Okay, so that doesn't look good for them going forward. If that trend continues, that's bad.
But they were supposed to be basing this on science, not on politics, not on getting reelected.
But so right, and so I think the whole idea here was to say, look at what we did. We saved you from the possibility of being poisoned by all this stuff coming in. And they didn't, once again, they didn't count on people going, hey, wait a minute.
Yes, like we did with the library, or
right.
Like we did with Cheryl reading from a piece of paper saying this is what the rule is, and we go look at the rule.
Yeah, and when you think about it, it's really great that somebody cared enough to go out there and test the stuff. And listen, it doesn't mean that there isn't still stuff in that sediment that's bad.
But these are the wrong guys to be looking into it, and they're looking into it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, well, and they're not even doing the thing that they should be doing if they're going to try to do something about this situation there. The grants or Josephine County testing all of this stuff doesn't accomplish the goal of affecting some sort of change up there at the dam site. The only thing that you can do in order to mitigate the issue here is to remove the sediment from the area. And who's going to do that? Nobody.
That's it's certainly not going to be the county with the least amount of money. Look, Simon, Mike and I have no money. Okay, we're only able to do this because this stuff, as long as we put up with the hassles, this stuff is free to put out there. And then I spend a tremendous amount of time, and so does Mike, shooting these videos, getting them ready for you, talking about them. Now, that's why you have this channel, this news to look at, okay? But we don't have the money, so we're not going to do a national newscast, okay? So if Josephine County does not have the money, what can they do? Well, they can inform people. They can inform people, but they can't foot the bill. Certainly not going to foot the bill alone. What, are you crazy? We can't afford to do that unless you're spending money from the general fund, unless you're spending money in order to make yourself look better and get reelected.
Well, and this is an interesting thing, because some of the same people who are supposed to care so much about the environment are instead on this one not interested in this situation at all, because they're the ones who caused it. And so they're not interested at all in coming in there and testing that sediment, testing that water, and doing whatever needs to be done to mitigate that issue. They don't care about that at all, and they're not going to start caring about it. So, I don't know what you hope to do here by, ginning up a bunch of fear about this, except get people elected that are probably the wrong people to get elected.
Probably. Let's watch the next little clip.
In the sediment, it wasn't qualified for hexavalent. I didn't speciate the chromium for CR3 and CR6. It was the total chromium, and that's also a concern that we have coming down the watershed.
Now, he's talking about chromium. Now, that was never mentioned again either, but you'll see in the very next clip, it's the lead in to the next thing that he has to say. Okay, well, we didn't test it for chromium, but chromium's bad. Okay, well, there are a lot of things that are bad.
Yeah,
they didn't test it for hydrochloric acid either, but hydrochloric acid is bad. And let me tell you my story about the evils of hydrochloric acid. You're going to see.
Well, right. And listen, this guy probably knows that there's somebody who used to come to the weekly business session on a fairly regular basis with, scary stories about, hexafluoral chromium 6 or whatever. I don't know what
that was. Alan Ayer.
Oh, that was Alan. Okay.
Alan Ayer and Joseph Rice were the two principal characters behind, as far as we know, as said by the commissioners and by the detractors, of being the main guys that pushed for this.
Well, wait a minute though. Whatever happened to this the scare on the chromium 6? Whatever happened to that?
He couldn't get anybody to listen to him.
Is it because they tested the water and found out it wasn't in there? Or I mean, doesn't Grants Pass City care if there's chromium 6 in the water? I mean, did they address that? Listen, you know what? Both of these local governments have a big communication problem. They don't talk to people about stuff. If somebody's ginning up a bunch of fear about chromium 6, Why didn't they just test for chromium-6 and say, here's the levels, this guy's a loon?
Well, let's suppose that they tested for chromium-6. We run into this question all the time. Well, don't you guys know the answer? Or, I can't speak because I don't know the answer. There's a reason that you don't know the answer, because they're not telling you. Because if they tested for it, why wouldn't that be on the front page of their website? Why wouldn't we already know? We don't know?
Yes.
Really? Yeah. We don't know? I mean, well, we can pay a little more attention to some other people than some other people do in the community, and we don't know.
Right. Well, and it's sad that we got to this point where the commissioners are funding a study that apparently the city people aren't even aware of. And you know, the cities, they're not doing anything about it. No, they don't care about it.
She did say that, even though she said in a public meeting that I was wrong and making it all up.
Yeah, well, you know, that's what video is for.
Yeah, but when she says that, I just kind of go, I got you again. You're a liar.
You know, I don't know why people would do that. But anyway, then the city, you know, guys like Roy Lindsay has a conniption reaction and then doesn't even pay attention. He deals with it like, you know, we've got to deal with that scourge, Dale Matthews, instead of dealing with the issue, you know, and listen. Apparently he came to his senses. He went with Viken and Lori and took this and was there present for you know, one of the taking of these samples and
kind of a follow-up test according to them now.
Right, right. And so good, you know, and that proves. But what he should have done exactly right after that is on the very next city meeting is mention that he did that and what
or have a press conference. Say, hey, you know, I went along with them. We found out from Viken. Well, he could have said, hey, you know, listen, what about this? By the way, tonight's show is going to go a little bit long because we're really going to show you all the stuff. We're going to get it all in this time. We're not suffering from bad internet. And you can, if any of this stuff is bothering you, you can go to the Wednesday show. Okay, that's not really that big a deal. You just click on Wednesday and then vote on I'm outraged, I'm mildly perturbed, I don't give a dang, you know, whatever. You just click on one of those. Okay, next clip, please.
I know that I was hired a number of years ago to do a watershed analysis from Lost Creek down past Grants Pass, and we were showing a trending of the hexavalent chromium from Lost Creek down south, but we're talking in parts, you know, per billion. You know, small numbers, but we're looking at a sediment sample which has much higher numbers in parts per million. That's just okay, we need to watch this because this could become an issue for us downstream over time.
So there's your answer. It didn't pay out last time, did it?
Right. Yeah. No, it didn't. And I think he was referring then to testing water, and now he's testing sediment. But
this is going to pay off if you test sediment and drop acid into it.
Yeah, perhaps. You know, this explains why it's so necessary to understand exactly what's taking place. Because if somebody said, "Listen, I tested the sediment here, and it's got, you know, if you even touch this water, you'll die." You know, well, that can be, you know, that can be a very scary thing, but you have to understand why this sample is like it is. And it may well be that if I drill down in my backyard and test the sediment, you know, test the soil that's there, it's not going to be any different than what they got out of that sample there.
Okay,
it may be a lot different. Maybe different in different chemicals.
Personal bias here that Mike does not like. Okay. My personal bias is I think that if you come to a news show where we have no advertising, we don't have anybody telling us what to put on or not put on, then we're more likely to tell you all of the news rather than hold something back because it would make our advertisers upset, like Dan Mancuso does with the IV News. Okay. He told me that personally and then denied it. All right. So, now, instead, if you go to someone else's website, a couple of them come to mind, or if you go to a TV station and they say, watch tonight where we're going to tell you about the emergency having to do with arsenic, and they tell you the same story, and there's not an emergency, but they've ginned you up by saying, you've got to watch tonight. Why? arsenic. See, I think that we have a bit more credibility than them. So if you have a water lab that later says, like the new guys say, hey, we're citizens of the community. We'll test it for free for you for a year. We'll do it every week for free. To me, that's just to me now, that rings a little more true than someone who's trying to get you to sign a 5-year contract to do this little bit of testing.
I don't know where our difference is on that.
I like capitalism, I do, but I don't like raking people over or giving them parts of the story so that they go kind of nutso and say, arsenic, hexavalent chromium. Well, that turned out to be nothing, but we better watch this one. What?
Yeah. Yeah, you know what? I think that sometimes a profit motive can get people to say things that are not exactly true. I'm not, but that doesn't mean that I don't think that guy has a right to go sell his product to whoever.
Absolutely. Of course he does. Well, this is
caveat emptor,
that's right.
Buyer beware. And, that's why we're supposed to select savvy people to sit in those positions so they don't get hoodwinked by everybody who comes by selling widgets,
But it's every time. It's happened every time. I'm there for every meeting, and every salesman that comes through the door, I'm not saying, shysters or anything, but every salesman that comes through the door, the commissioners are ready to do it and spend money that they don't have. They're spending our money that they say, we can't have law enforcement. Think about the children. Hey, you're spending this money. It could be spent on this. Wait till we get the part where they say it's not coming out of the general fund. This is delicious. This is the outrageous part where you're going to be driven to go back to Wednesday and click and click and click and click and click on outraged. You'll see.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go. More video, not go to the...
Then we have some other samples that were brought in, and again, they're showing the aluminum and arsenic levels. Calcium and the chromium levels stayed pretty consistent, pretty high.
From where?
Iron, manganese, and then the uranium. I'm still showing uranium trace, but I'm not seeing much mercury.
Manganese?
And not much mercury. Not much mercury. Listen, I thought there was a mine up there. Those guys were probably using all kinds of mercury to separate the gold and all that kind of stuff.
How come we have other samples? Other samples from whom? From him? Is it in the report? It wasn't in the report that we got. Where are these other samples? It's like when you go to sign the petition to recall Sandy Casanelli, let us tell you other reasons why you got to sign this. That's illegal.
Yeah.
What are these other samples?
I'm a skeptic. You probably figured that out.
Not me.
I'm a skeptic. I don't buy this crap. I don't buy it at all. I think that there's a lot of things in nature that would creep you out if you knew what was in it. And but
you ever seen those enlarged pictures of bugs that are in your food or on your clothes?
Right. Exactly. Wow. But the bottom line is, just because it's in the sediment doesn't mean it's in the water. Doesn't mean it's ever going to be in the water. And that is the point. And you're going to have to prove it to me, because the guy said up there at the dam, when they just had ripped this thing out and everything was fresh, the stuff is flowing over oozing sediment, and they get 7 parts per billion on arsenic. I'm sorry that you haven't sold me, because you go down the river, 250 yards, or you go down to where it joins into the Rogue and go down a couple hundred yards and take a test. You're not even going to get it there. Okay, it would have to be coming out of there in massive quantity.
Let me repeat that we are not anti-science. Give me a break, okay?
Who's saying that?
Yeah, and we are not. Environmentalists, may say, well, you're not paying attention to the numbers. Yes, we are paying very close attention to the numbers. Are you believing this? The other sample? What other sample? Look.
Listen,
it's just like the levy. If you're going to try to convince us with numbers, you better have the numbers.
Yes. And listen, every poison known to man exists below the atmosphere of this earth right now and is all around us all the time. Doesn't mean you're sucking it in. It doesn't mean that because you can manifest arsenic out of some sediment, that when water flows over the top of it without your doing whatever you did to release that, that it's going to be in the water. It just doesn't mean that. and this stuff is leaching out of everywhere that contributes to this river, and yet in the Rogue River, right by where they take up the water after a fairly heavy rain, which probably manifested in some runoff coming out of Evans Creek, gives us no higher arsenic level. Now, listen, give us something else to test for that you're worried about or whatever. I'm not buying into this. This whole thing is a scam. I think is
he was careful about using that word. Yep.
Well, the motivation for doing this, you have to look at what is the motivation for doing this. And listen, if you got something on the ball here, then frickin' show it to us.
Yeah.
All right. But you haven't done that yet. It's not convincing that just because some stuff exists in the sediment that is going to be in the water and that we should all freak out and throw all our money into the air.
Why are they falling for this kind of stuff again and again? It doesn't even take any intelligence to come in and sell these guys on parting with $135,000 a year.
Okay.
At a time when we don't have the money.
Yeah.
We don't have it, remember?
Yeah.
Oh, look, you get
and listen,
for the price of one, but you don't have the money for the one. So what are you doing?
And I'm perfectly willing to be one of these guys. Listen, down the road, 5 or 10 years, if this somehow changes, I'll freely admit that I was wrong, but I'm not gonna be.
But it's not based on the
You're gonna be, today. And let me tell you what, you people who have subscribed to this thing and are married to it, hook, line, and sinker, you're going to be wearing this like a boat anchor. This is going to be your baby. Unless some of this stuff manifests down here, you're going to be the one wearing this forever.
Yeah, but these guys aren't going to be in office forever. The judge already said there's no such thing as permanent, and for these guys, there isn't. They got 1 foot in the grave and 1 foot on the banana peel.
Yeah.
Okay, go next.
It's just goofy.
Next one.
So when I first talked to Eric, he said it's going to take years before that sediment to get to Josephine County. So part of the request I sent over to legal and discussed with Leah is
a 5-year
plan. Let's get a baseline and then do periodic sampling for 5 years. So as it unfolds, we can understand what's happening.
Yeah.
I got a question. Periodic samples of what?
Yeah.
I mean, once this sediment comes down to the Rogue River, how are you going to know what sediment is what? Let's say you're somewhere in the old lake section of the Rogue River, and you go down and you scoop up some sediment. How do you know what you have?
Well,
how do you know that sediment is coming down from there? Are they going to test repeatedly sediment at the dam site or something? What is that going to tell us?
We can't play the entire tape of every meeting. I sit through them all, and I don't like doing that, okay? But I'm watching it for you. He did talk later in this same meeting about having an airplane fly over the Rogue River on a periodic basis and map the sediment creep.
How are they going to do that? How are they going to impregnate all the sediment now with some sort of radioactive dye? Uranium.
That's what's going to do it.
And then they could, have some sort of, infrared photography or something. There it is. Yes, I see that stuff creeping down the river. You know what? This thing.
No, they're going to fall for
crazy.
Anything. Yeah, they're going to fly over the river and they're going to map the sediment from above.
Yes, and I ask again, and please, if you're one of these people who's married to this, please tell me how you're going to tell what sediment is what and where it came from. How are you going to do that? Okay, that's just stupid.
No, it's science. It's science, Mike. Dude, get with the program. It's political science. It's political science. Okay, next meeting.
I'm sorry?
Next meeting.
Oh, okay.
the hope is that we will be able to, in subsequent years,
November
get other
4th.
stakeholders in the community, such as the City of Grants Pass, the City of Rogue River, the EPA, and other funders, people who have a vested interest in the results of this initial study, to tie together a funding stream for a total of 5 years.
And this
In
is
the future.
what we're talking about with this. We're talking about year one.
That's correct.
Where is this initial money coming from? The money we're talking about this morning. Where is it? What fund is that coming out of?
It's my understanding that we are going to move forward with a request to the legislature for, there's something called an e-board, emergency board.
Remember that word.
Hopefully the money will be coming from there. If the e-board does not approve our request for the money, then it will have to come from the general fund.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions. Yes, I have a couple of questions.
Yes.
Now, wait a minute. The general fund is where the funds originally come from for the sheriff's patrols. They come for the juvenile department. They come for the district attorney. This emergency situation that we're in, that's where the money comes from, the general fund.
Yeah, yes, and that's an issue. And it's, you notice here in the beginning that, well, we're looking to find out how to come up with a funding stream. This is the function of these people. They're always looking for a funding, perhaps the impetus of this is that they discovered that there's, some funding stream that they might possibly be able to get if they had such an emergency like this. And
that's what e-board stands for.
Yes. So
the emergency board.
Yes, for crying out loud. I should have figured.
Now that you find out there is such a thing as an emergency board,
Mm-hmm.
the emergency is no longer public safety with the sheriff. The emergency is now striping. No. The emergency is now something having to do with something that's in the water.
Sediment creep.
Quite sure. Yeah, sediment creep. Well, we already know who the sediment creep is, but we won't identify him by name. Okay, look. This was November 4th. What did she say? The November 4th, she says, it's going to come from the general fund. Now, let's roll back to tape, and we'll go to the commissioners' meeting. It's a little bit blurry video. It's not my fault. This is county video of October 28th, which was just a week before that. Go ahead, Mike. What are they saying?
I just want to voice that I'm reluctant to utilize county general fund dollars, and I'm specific on that, county general fund dollars to fund this item B, which I haven't really had an opportunity to discuss. So I don't know all of the details on it. I wasn't part of the session where it was discussed. So I'm pleading ignorant that I don't know all the details. However, I doing the cost benefit analysis, the potential liability that I see to the county, it seems like as a state waterway, it would be responsibility of the state, EPA or DEQ to monitor this.
Hello.
Certainly the city of Grants Pass would have, as they get their drinking water for the city of Grants Pass out of the Rogue River, you'd think that they would have a lot at stake and be maybe the first person to go to with wanting to fund this.
Those discussions are occurring.
Great.
They're occurring.
Mine is just a blanket objection to general fund dollars, and I think it's
Listen to
important
their
we need to
answer.
fund it. We need to get a handle on this situation, and without knowing more, that's just where I stand on that. And I'm
You'll
sure
be
you
at the
guys,
meeting tomorrow, correct?
No, he'll be absent.
You'll be
I
absent
will
tomorrow.
probably be absent of the admin meeting.
I think your concerns will certainly be raised.
That's all I wanted to do. I don't need to know
we,
anymore.
we are aware of that. And
Raised.
we are addressing that.
RAIZED.
Shall we say we have our eyes on a funding mechanism
Great.
for it that's not general fund.
Not general funds.
But that's been part of the tricky
Yeah.
aspect
Yeah.
of trying to get this done before, and of course it's raining, before the heavy rains come and wash away the baseline that we're trying to achieve. So sorry you won't be there tomorrow.
Yeah, I think you guys can handle it. I just wanted that
But we are,
main
just rest assured,
that's
we
my
are addressing those.
personal opinion on this.
Rest assured, Mike. How many times has she said rest assured to everybody? Rest assured, there's no pornography at the library. Rest assured, people are saying that they don't want a voter's pamphlet. Rest assured that these 4 junk ordinances will be good for you. That's Cheryl Walker. And Keith Heck is agreeing with her all the way. Simon,
and we're looking
has an
for
objection.
another funding stream.
Right, and stream, yeah, and we know what's in that stream, and I don't want to be under that. Listen, Simon Hare doesn't want general fund being spent on this. So now let's go to the very next day in the little back room. Very next day after this meeting. Go ahead.
There was the question you had yesterday that you posed in regards to not coming out of general fund money. It's not. Okay. The discussion of the meeting with Diane Hoover some time ago in regards to her budget having funding available with the environmental funding. Mm-hmm. And the other thing is we're pursuing a proposal to go before the legislative board to be able to get funding as well. Okay.
Yeah, but of course, there's no guarantee that you're going to get funding from them. I thought that, you know, it's interesting that this is the next day and he said he wasn't going to be there and yet he's there.
Right. Well, he had something else to go to and then suddenly had nothing else to go to. But the most important point here is that you've already heard what the answer is because we already know the answer. Diane Hoover says the money is going to come out of, if it doesn't come from the E-board, emergency board, it's going to come from the general fund. Cheryl Walker just told him it's not going to come from the general fund. She said to him the day before, rest assured, it's not coming from the general fund. It's not coming from the general fund. Why is that important? Because that's where the sheriff gets his money. Because the things that they've said are a real emergency, they get their money from the general fund. And they want to make sure everybody knows this is they've been sold this by Eric Shasma, and now they're going to try to sell it to us and to Simon, who never did buy it. Okay? Don't worry, Simon. It's not. Go anytime to Wednesday and click on outrage. It's not coming from the general fund. It's not. Would you stop asking me? Next clip, please.
Are we going to go after funding from the city, EPA, the state, the other federal agencies, Department of Fisheries? Yes, we are. We have a long list of people we're going to go after for funding, but it's too short a notice for us to get 5 years of funding from anyone. And so we are going, at this point, and I support this, to do the initial testing and then start pursuing those others. I've tried to pursue the E-board. They aren't going to meet until January, excuse me, before the February session. So that's a little while off. But we are going to go after those other sources of funding to pay for the bulk of this testing over time.
Okay. Well, what exactly, what motivation would the city then have to start pitching into the funding for this if somebody else has already signed a contract and say, yeah, we're on the hook for it? Why would the city, if I was the city, I don't know that I would be stepping up for that. Hey, look at these suckers. They're willing to be on the hook for this. Let's,
Now that was just
crazy.
A couple of days later. They had just told us, they had just told Simon, absolutely positively not coming from the general fund. Stop asking. It's not coming from the general fund. They didn't say stop asking. It's not coming from the general fund. And we're pursuing this thing with the E-board. Now, this is the same meeting where Diane Hoover was just saying, well, we can go after the E-board. And then, but Cheryl in that meeting says, well, we really can't go after the E-board. So we're on our own. What? Who's lying to us here and why?
And I think,
Go ahead.
Yeah, right. And I think an interesting point is, what was stopping the county commissioners from just going to one of these water testing agencies and say, listen, I want to get tests for this, and this in these locations? And they could have had that done for, now they, Lori and Viken got these tests done for like $115. It was 4 tests 4 or 5 tests for arsenic. If you add about 5 or 6 other things in there, maybe you spend as much as $1,000 doing this because you're paying for their time and all of that kind of stuff. And then you come up with baselines where you go, there's nothing dangerous here.
There's nothing
Then why would you
them than that stops us. We're just 2 citizens.
Right.
We're just 2 citizens that have some talent for investigative journalism. So we bring you a show every night. Even the TV stations go, you do it every night to tell you what the news is. So they just said, well, they were challenged by, who challenged them, Mike? Do you remember?
Who are we talking about here? Who challenged
Joseph
who?
Rice challenged them, said, why don't you just
Right.
go out and do your own tests?
Oh, right.
Just like Simon challenged us.
Right.
Said, well, if you don't like it, why don't you just complain to the OGEC, to the Ethics Committee? Well, you know what? If they're going to kind of laugh at you and they're going to challenge you, you just go out and do it. And it turns out that Simon was full of it. And
Right.
if we bring you the story, they did the tests. Okay, we've been working with them. But if we bring you the story, then now you've got citizens who are doing the commissioner's job. You've got citizens who are doing the commissioner's job. You've got citizens who are doing the newspaper's job and the television station's job. You've got citizens that are helping you analyze it. What do you need these guys for?
Yeah. Now, as I have said before, I'm fully on board. If people want to privately fund the testing on this sort of thing, that's fine. I don't have any problem with that at all. And I'm not even saying it isn't prudent to do. But you're going to have to prove to me that what's sitting up there is a lurking danger. And that case has not been made sufficiently, if you're asking me.
It's not been made. And they even found a firm that would do it for free. We even offered to run the Ann Basker videotapes and do all that stuff for free. They don't want that for free. Well, that's not achieving their political goals. For free is not good for the county. We're at a fiscal cliff. We're hanging on by our fingernails. We can't afford, but people are staying away from Josephine County in droves because of badcounty.com and because we don't have law enforcement, but we've got to spend all this money on something which is looking like it's a sham.
Right. And let me ask another question. If the sediment begins to creep down the Rogue River and they're just, they're going to study that with overflights and things of that nature over the next 5 years. What if all of a sudden they determine that, oh my God, there's horrible toxins being released from that sediment that's coming down the river? Then what are you going to do about it?
They don't have, it's like tearing down the Dimmick Tower. They don't have a plan.
Well, and there's nothing, here's the bottom line. You couldn't do anything about it except filter every bit of sediment in the Rogue River. So if you were going to stop this from happening, you would have to go up there and remove the sediment that's there now. You can't have the stuff flowing down the Rogue River and do overflight studies and all that. By then, the cat is out of the barn.
Well,
okay,
out of the barn. Okay, but look,
follow the bouncing ball, Dale.
It's very much like when Diane Hoover came to the commissioners and said, our infant mortality rate is up, but it's good news because we're going to get more funding because of that. What? She said it twice. This was no mistake. Okay, so, oh, look, arsenic in the water. Well, there's funding. Now, wait a minute. How about take the direct approach, and if you think that there's arsenic that's in that sediment, dig out the sediment.
Right. I mean, that's the way to deal with this situation. But obviously, that is a very expensive proposition. So you're going to have to.
Is it more expensive than $600,000?
Oh, I suspect it is. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't know, but the point is, they get no political advantage from making sure that the police, the sheriff has funding from another source other than a levy. They don't get any political advantage from taking.
Actually, I think they do. I think they would. I think they don't realize that, and I think that they don't think that is at all possible. But they would if they actually did come up with an alternative funding source for the sheriff's department. That would be political capital.
They're consulting Roy Lindsay. That's why they can't get. Or they're talking to the staff that has no other solutions. Let's see the next little clip. Go ahead, Mike.
I can't see, Dale. I'm scared.
So it's not coming out of general fund. That was your question.
Well,
about
that, and I don't want it, so if you take it out of some other fund, but we have to backfill a general fund dependent department, you know, it's like planning, spending a bunch of money on something, but it's not general funds, and we have to
But it's
supplant
not
that
coming
loss
out.
in
I just told
revenue
you.
by general funds.
Wally's
That's
sitting right there.
my concern, and I don't want that to happen.
I think it was pretty clearly stipulated yesterday that this is not going to have anything to do with general fund monies.
Oh,
Yep.
oh, okay. Yeah, all right. I feel better
That
now.
clears it up. And as Keith Eck told us several times, the commissioners had nothing to do with the last levy. I told you that they had nothing to do with it. Why are you giving me that look? I wasn't even giving you a look. It was somebody else. Why are you giving me that look? Well, I just won't explain it then. So he's made it very clear. This is not coming out of the general fund. The check is in the mail. And what's the next big lie that people say? I'll call you tomorrow.
Yes. Right.
Next clip, please.
There's so many needs and demand on the general fund that this is a important thing, but frankly, litigation and a stay would have been probably the most effective way had, you know, these concerns been codified and brought to the board when the process was going on. The pressure on the general fund, in my opinion, from just the public health, public safety elements that we know are much greater than this one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Mike, since we're running a little bit long, why don't you go straight to the interview with Vika Nakodia, and then we'll end up with Cheryl's summary, okay?
Okay. Here we go.
I was concerned about the eco-scare techniques being used on Facebook, showing scary pictures of the dead fish behind the dam and this little oily film on the water and saying, oh, this is all the toxins and the water's killing things or whatever. No. You know, if you drain a pond, the fish are going to die. And those were pest fish anyway, and fishermen are told to kill them. The ones in the picture, there were no salmon in the picture. If you go to the Oath Keepers Joco website right now, you'll see all the scary pictures, and you'll see that the scare techniques are still being employed. You know, we saw this stuff on Facebook, and of course we were rightly alarmed, but we also saw there was a pretty powerful level of manipulation, I should say, you know, using real pictures but misrepresenting what they were actually about in order to scare people. And it's no wonder that people got worked up. I ended up going door to door saying, hey, arsenic in the water, oh gosh, we're all going to die, you know, whatever. So it's our civic duty to try to get to the facts. And when we see these scare techniques being used, and we're insulted for trying to present the facts to counter them, you know, we're called obstructionists or keyboard commandos or whatever we were told by Joseph Rice. You know, that's just not a reasonable way to have a conversation. So I'm glad that we were actually able to go and get some facts, do some water sampling, as we were challenged to do, and determine that really there's no arsenic in the water to be concerned about. So I'm happy with drinking the city water on occasion. It's got some chlorine in it, doesn't it? And you know, we did what we could to try to get to the facts here.
Okay, so then my favorite clip of all of these clips is Cheryl Walker summing up the sum of all fears. Hear from Cheryl Walker. Here we go.
I very highly support this, and I think that, you know, that's enough money to put another officer on the road. Well, yeah, it may be, but if we find that there's high levels of uranium, aluminum, or any other toxic substances in that water, and we save one child from a lifetime of neurological disturbance, it's worth it to me. So.
Oh, well, you know what, Dale, we have been wrong because Cheryl cares about us. And you know what? I'm going to vote for her.
You know, the thing is that she just a couple of months ago was talking about when she drives by the boarded up and rat infested.
Tears up a little.
She tears up when for the children, because they don't have a place to stay. These little guys they're breaking the law. They're robbing people. They're throwing their grandmother in a wood chipper, and they've got no place to put them. And Cheryl just feels just so sorry for them. But now she feels sorry for other children. Now, next she's going to be feeling sorry because children can't vote for her. I mean, would you pick the children that you're backing, please?
Well, you know what? Listen, everybody knows that the quickest way to influence people, and in many cases it's done during, political campaigns, is to appeal to their emotions because you need to divorce them from reason. Now, listen, it may well be that Cheryl Walker has been influenced by the potentiality of this danger, and that she didn't know what to do, and so she made an impulse decision. And then when the evidence was shown to her that, hey, none of this feared levels of arsenic exist in the water.
But she lied to get there, Mike. She lied. She says it's not. Listen to me. You can believe me. You can trust me. You can vote for me. It's not coming out of the general fund.
Yes. Well, you know what? Listen, I think they had ideas that they could find funding for this elsewhere. I don't know if those would have come through or not, but the problem is
5 days later. Says this 4 or 5 days later. So
right.
What changed?
But yes, I don't know. I don't know what changed, but clearly something did. And, apparently after these guys made their little presentation, they all decided, including Cheryl, and well, not all of them, because Keith Heck is still on board with this whole deal.
Yeah, Cheryl was looking to it to the bitter end, but apparently Keith is not getting the message. Keith, this isn't going to work. They're not even mentioning arsenic anymore now.
And Keith, the guy who couldn't even follow, what certain terms meant when he was they were explained to him a couple of times in a row, he still couldn't remember what that means. So he's going, hey, what does this mean? And this is the guy who has clarity on the level of danger that this presents. And, he's the guy who's still voting for it. Thank God, got voted down, So let's keep an eye on this stuff here. But, be thankful that we're not going to spend a whole bunch of money chasing our tail.
You know why he's still thankful? Why this guy is still thankful? Because he's still got turkey left over from yesterday.
Yes, I do.